I got to be the dysfunctional king father in Frozen.
Frozen.
And you know, and Wreck-It Ralph, I was the bartender, and I get to be the bartender in Wreck-It Ralph too. So I'm very happy.
He gets to be the bartender every night.
That was my concern. Is like if they bring back Pinky and the Brain.
Well, there's no question. It would be heartbreaking to not have Maurice and me,
Especially me.
be hired as Pinky and the Brain. If that ever were rebooted, it would be very heartbreaking. It would also not be the first time that that's happened. I remember working on a Jetsons movie years ago in Hanna-Barbera, and they used Tiffany as Judy Jetson.
Yeah, that's right.
It was not Tiffany's fault. But
She just thought she was alone now.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's too easy.
But you know what? It broke Janet Waldo's heart, who just passed away. Another one this year, 96 years old or something. But it broke her heart, and like they say, in The Godfather, it's not personal, Sonny. It's just business. It was not a popular decision, and in fact, it was a bad decision. Charlie Solomon, who used to review animated projects for the LA Times, the first line he wrote in his review of the Jetsons movie was, how on earth they could replace Judy Jetson and expect to blah, 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 blah. It was the first thing he wrote in a scathing review about it, and he was correct.
Because when you go to these movies, you're recreating, you're trying to get back some of your childhood, you know. And I remember when the first Transformers movie came out. You know, I was a middle-aged dad, but there was a ton of young dads there with their kids, and I was sitting there with my little guy, and you know, the movie was fine. Shia LaBeouf, yeah, great, okay. Megan Fox, fantastic, nice, and then all of a sudden, Optimus Prime springs to life. And the first words out of his mouth, the theater erupts, and it's all the dads going, holy shit, they got the real guy! It's the real Optimus Prime! They were thrilled to death that it was Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime from their childhood, not some sound-alike, not some celebrity. You know, so there's value to all of it, and everybody, the work is open. But I say to these people, be smart when you're bringing people's childhoods back to them. Bring it all the way back. Use the original actors when you reboot.
That will not always
I gotta
work.
tell you one funny story though that comes to mind. The first movie.
Famous last words.
Yeah, that's a good one. Now you're gonna like it. Trish, you're gonna love this. This is good.
Okay.
There was this movie. It was the first animated feature I ever worked on called Quest for Camelot.
Oh, you just had to mention
Remember
that.
this?
Please.
This is gonna be the title of my autobiography if I ever write it. Ready? I'll tell you this quick. It's really good. So I got cast in this thing one way or another. I don't know how, and I was happy to be in it. And they had me playing a chicken named Bladebeak, who started kind of funny, right? Yeah. Look at it. You guys are such nerds. You know what? Right? That's amazing. So anyway, he started as a nice chicken and then turned him into a weapon chicken, right? So I went in there and I'm doing my stuff and it's funny and they're loving it. And I go, just this guy was English. The guy Max was producing the movie. Everybody loves what you're doing with Bladebeak. It's a big hit. It's going over great and it's terrific. I said, oh, cool, man. So I'm happy to be the chicken, right? But then one day I walked in and I saw a cast list for this movie. And it's all like movie stars and TV stars and me. And I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things is, right? And I mean, I've always had a pretty good perspective about this stuff. And I thought, it'll be interesting to see if I keep this part because everybody else is a TV star, right? So sure enough, I'm at home a few weeks later and the phone rings and it's this guy, Max. And he goes, hello, Jess, it's Max. Listen, I've got a bit of bad news for you. And I said, okay, what's up? He goes, we love what you're doing with Bladebeak, but unfortunately, you know, we need to have celebrities in the movie to promote it on entertainment side in the magazines and whatnot. So we've had to replace you with a very big celebrity, but we still want to have you as the guy who says over there. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be the guy that goes over there and makes the residuals, right? So they were going to replace me. So I said, listen, I kind of thought it was coming. It's cool. No worries, man. And he said, yeah, we're still going to have you do a bunch of stuff. I said, okay, cool. As we're hanging up the phone, I said to the guy, I go, hey, man, I'm just curious. Who did you get to replace me? And his exact words, he goes, we got Urkel.
Not Jaleel
Not
White.
Jaleel White, Urkel.
No,
Right?
nice.
So the title of my autobiography is going to be We Got Urkel, Adventures in Show Business. And the funny thing is, Urkel just valet parked my car at Casa Vega 2 weeks ago. No, I'm just kidding. Come on, hey, listen, we're friends, man. It's a joke. Take it easy.
All right, the next question. That guy back there, yeah. Just wanted to say thank you for coming.
Thanks for you. Thank you for coming too, man.
It's
Appreciate
very
it.
kind of you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, what a way to spend New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah.
With a guy like a stormtrooper pointing a gun at you while you're answering questions.
You guys are actually one of the reasons I drove 11 hours.
Oh,
to this
thank
game.
you.
Oh my
I wanted to
goodness.
see you.
Well, you guys are the reason that we flew for, so there you go.
Well, I just wanted to say my kids grew up watching your show way back when. We loved it. I'm
Thank you.
currently rewatching the series on Netflix right now.
How about that?
Isn't that awesome?
I am still amazed at the brilliance of your show.
You know what?
It's
I'm sorry,
fantastic.
what is your name, sir?
Michael?
Mike, I got to tell you, that is one of the most sort of wonderful experiences of this whole thing, being able to not only be healthy and be doing, our gigs 20 years later, but the incredible response to Animaniacs being on one of these new platforms. I'm telling you, when Animaniacs premiered in April, I believe it was April 1st, oddly enough, and my Twitter feed blew up. People were saying, is this an April Fool's joke? And my point was that it engendered such a response that people thought folks were screwing with them, that it was that big a deal to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they would have been really, really angry if they had not really had Netflix on. I was so shocked that it was that big a deal. For 3 days, it was the #1 trending thing on Facebook. This is a show 20 years old, and to me what it does is show the incredible foresight of Tom Ruegger and Steven Spielberg and Gene McCartney, and the fact that they put
Sorry, Stephen who?
Yeah, Steven is a guy, I bowl with him,
Steve.
Nice Jewish kid from Phoenix. But 20 years later, it does the same thing that it did for my dad and I when we watched Rocky and Bullwinkle and Fraction Fairy Tales and Tom Slick and the Flintstones. 20 years later, it holds up beautifully.
Yes, it does.
And it is such
I'm seeing a lot of them for the first time.
What do you mean?
I'm seeing a lot of the episodes
For the first time, yeah.
Because we did the voices.
Right.
We recorded the shows, but
Yeah.
we might not have seen the finished product.
We were-
I know how the story
We were
ends.
recording the show at 4 in the afternoon when it was on TV, so yeah, very often.
That was actually the
We did not
question.
get
It was after school. I wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
That is actually the question I wanted to ask you. How did each of you arrive at the voices for your characters?
Tress, why don't you start with this one? Yeah.
Well, we had an idea of what the characters looked like, and we were lucky enough to be cast in roles that were us, at our core, so it wasn't anything that we had to reach for. They knew that we could do it, and then we would come up with a voice, and they trusted us, for the most part, to decide what was appropriate for the character. I don't remember them doing much correction.
No.
Voice-wise.
All of us, with the exception of Jesse, because this guy was
He's nuts.
selling crack in Hollywood, and all of a sudden I'm sorry, was that you?
Yeah.
But the rest of us had had the good fortune of working with Mr. Spielberg and Andrea Romano and Tom Ruegger on Tiny Toons and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So we already knew each other, but like Tress said, if you find, the older I get, I find out that the genius of a lot of people is knowing who to hire and then letting them do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
we all knew each other too, which was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd all worked on Tiny Toons, and so we kind of got first crack at the characters. And for me, I actually had the first appointment on the first day of auditions. Wow, is that right? They gave the 9 a.m. slot. They gave the 9 a.m. slot to the guy who was always late.
You're just getting in.
So I was the first person to read for the Brain, and the last person to read for the Brain.
Over and done. Boom.
Andrea Romano told me they cast me on the spot. But what happened with me, I looked at the Brain and saw Orson Welles. I didn't know they were basing him on a writer named Tom Minton that was working in the building. So I just looked at that and went, oh, how nice, they've drawn me a little Orson Welles mouse. Because they know I do that from Orson Wales back on Tiny Toons. So I read it, they cast me, I read for everything else, and didn't get it. Because the right people got it. and that's my
Bro
little.
with
That is
frogs.
called serendipity, ladies and
Isn't that
gentlemen.
wild?
And it took them, by the end of the day, they had thought they'd found their Pinky. The Pinky was going to be John Aston
How about that?
from
Gomez Adams.
from the Addams Family TV show, and from Tasmania, where he played a very cheerful villain named Bull Gator, which I thought the idea of just a cheerful villain was hysterical. And at that point, it was going to be Aston, and the next day, this guy reasoned, they went, nope, that's Pinky. This guy.
And the rest is Norv story.
But they made us wait quite a while before they made the casting decisions, and we were worried there.
Yeah, and Andrea, our lovely esteemed director and dear friend of ours, tells a story that, and it's not, it's I know it's true because it's experienced, I've actually experienced on more than one occasion, is that sometimes when you're lucky enough to work a lot, producers start to say, oh, Tress MacNeille, yeah, okay, she's great, we've heard. So you sometimes want to change your name or do something.
Sure.
Because the whole...
I've done that before.
The whole idea about this is to be chameleon-like, to not have people pigeonhole you, and to not be worried about the way you look or the way whether you fit the suit. And Andrea tells a story of, we purposely numbered the final
I like that.
callbacks for Mr. Spielberg. They said, okay, 1 through 10 for Dot, 1 through 10 for Yakko, 1 through 10 for Pinky, etc. And so the producers say, okay, great, I'm going to pick number, I'm happy with either 3, 5, or 8. Any one of those actresses would be great. Well, they all were Tress.
Gotcha.
But I understand the logic because people go, we've heard Tress now, this is the 5th or 6th callback, and Tress is, it's the name. So instead of that, they just say, God, frankly, it's a toss-up. 8, 5, and 9 are all great. All right, great, they're all Tress. So people, yeah, as Tress said in Morris, you just, we were fortunate to be, as they say, luck is, and this is a great example of that, luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. And that is absolutely true, you guys. Irrespective of what you do for a living, when you've done your almost 10,000 hours and you get the opportunity and you don't blow it, that's the difference, is that sooner or later you get a shot. Whether or not you capitalize is really, up to you. Now, the upshot of the whole thing, and here we are 20 years later talking about it, is just a huge gift. That you never know. So we are incredibly fortunate, for sure.
My thing was that, okay, yeah, isn't he good? He should run for something.
He's shy.
The Hills.
He's very good. He's very good. No, my whole thing was that I was a jingle singer. I was singing in jingles and I was singing in bands, and one thing led to another, and a guy I had sang for said, hey, they're casting voices for this Splash Mountain ride at Disneyland. Have you guys been on that ride? Okay, that's
Maybe.
my voice all over that ride. I'm Brer Rabbit, I'm Brer Accountant, I'm Brer everything on that thing, so it's awesome. So I did that, then went back to singing. Then a year later, they asked me if I could do Roger Rabbit, because they needed to do some replacement stuff with Roger Rabbit. So I said, gee, but sure I could, and next thing you know, we were doing that, and that was great. And then I got an agent, and they said, hey, there's this Animaniacs thing. And I said, oh, cool. And I didn't know any of these guys, which was good because I wasn't intimidated. If I had known who they were when I met them, I might have been, but I've never really been intimidated anyway, so it would have been a whole new experience. So anyhow, when I went in for my audition, they said it's Wacko and all this stuff, and they let me pick characters, and I said, well, Wacko, because he doesn't wear pants. So I thought that would be a nice idea.
Which, oddly enough, Jess has requested on many occasions.
Yes, exactly. But I'm turning over a new leaf in 2017, man. It's going to be great.
Turn over to a big leaf.
So I was doing some goofy voice as Wacko, some crazy cartoon thing, and I got a call back, which is when they like you enough to see you again. And I walked in, and Andrea, our director, I was there, and she said, now you do impressions, right? I said, yeah, I like doing impressions. She said, why don't you try like Elvis? For real. Now, nobody knows this. Can you imagine that? Be like, hey, man, can I call you Dadu? Hey, that's Babu, man. Hello, there's a potty emergency. Well, Elvis did have a potty emergency. Elvis was in the potty when he never had. Anyhow, so I said, yeah. I said, well, hey, what about, and then she said, well, what about the Beatles? And I said, well, which one? And she goes, well, don't they all sound the same? And I said, that's ridiculous. That would be like everybody from Texas sounding the same, right? So I proceeded to start doing the Beatles. You know, I started by doing John, and I was doing this. Then I started doing Paul, and Paul's a bit more like friendly and warm and cuddly and all that sort of thing, you know. Then I started doing George, and George sounded like he had a cold and spoke slowly. And then there was Ringo, and I started talking like this, you know. So I was doing the Beatles. And she said, that's pretty good, right? Come on, let's give it up. That was thanks, Rob. Yeah. See, that's a good party trick, too. That's